Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this?
You're now listening to a brand new episode of the Play Big Faster podcast.
Look what you done started.
Talk to him.
Attorney, high-performance coach, and speaker Scherrie Prince asks hard questions to really get to the bottom of what makes entrepreneurs tick. From starting a business, marketing, strategies, and the ins and outs of their industries. We talk everything from book recommendations, lifestyle hacks, and everything possible to get you inspired and motivated to build your own business. The Play Big Faster podcast starts now.
Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of the Play Big Faster podcast. We are joined today by Brian George. Brian is the founder of the Charitable Planning Network and also the founder of the Planning Network Partners. Hey Brian, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am doing awesome. I have been anxiously anticipating our talk today. So, if you can maybe jump right in and tell us exactly what these two organizations do and how they can help entrepreneurs, specifically attorneys, CPAs, and wealth advisors.
So, thanks for the opportunity. I've also been looking forward to this since we talked. So, the Charitable Planning Network started from a random thought I had that I'm a pretty good storyteller, and I have a compelling story to tell. But the people that this story was most targeted for, which are high net worth, and ultra high net worth individuals, I didn't know very many of them, and they didn't know me. So how do I tell this very impactful story if they don't know I exist? So what I decided was, if I can't get to know them, I can get in front of their trusted advisors, their estate planning attorneys, their CPAs, their wealth advisors, and share some of these nuanced strategies. And if they got it and understood the strategies and understood they work, then we could dig a little deeper in the specific situations. And I knew that would work because even when I started out in financial services, I learned that I didn't know everything, but I didn't need to. If I partnered up with other, with CPAs and with attorneys, then I just needed to know who to call to get the problem solved for my client. So at Charitable Planning Network, obviously the word charity is the first word. So I very charitably minded. I like working with organizations and individuals doing charitable planning. Planning part should be obvious, and the network indicates that we are a network of specialists. That instead of working in a silo, we're all working together to bring the best possible solution to the client. Because the CPA has information about the client that the attorney and the wealth advisor do not. But those are helpful. If you have a complex situation, you want to bring everybody in so you're not missing anything. And then by the time you come up with a solution to present to the client, it's bulletproof. So that was the goal behind Charitable Planning Network. Planning Network Partners is a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Washington, although we are in a number of other states. It kind of came about because people were asking me, do I have to be charitable to work with your organization? And I said, no. As far as asset management, and other advisors that I had been talking to about coming on board were saying, do I have to be charitable to work with your organization? And I said, no, you don't. It's nice if you are, because everybody wins, but it's not a requirement. So I decided then to just separate the advisory firm to ease some of the confusion. I even had a client say, are the fees you're charging me going to some charity that I don't like? And I said, no, it has nothing to do. So I just split the advisory firm from Charitable Planning Network and came up with Planning Network Partners. And that was the genesis of both organizations.
So let's start with Charitable Planning Network, since that was the first organization that you founded. Um, I see that you basically work in three main categories: charitable planning, cash flow planning, and tax deferral planning. Could you just kind of share with me the difference and what services you provide within those scopes?
Okay. So, obviously, I'll start with charitable planning, and I will comment that the other two focuses came as a result of the charitable plan. And the charitable planning started, oh man, probably 6, 7 years ago. I was talking to a colleague in North Carolina, and he and I started training together, and we were just catching up. And he was talking about his church. He also belonged to a very old Southern Baptist church, and he said that they were struggling because they wanted to start some youth programs, but they couldn't afford it because they would have to hire two part-time staffers, and they didn't have the money to do that. So I said, your church is a little older than mine, so you probably have um, a lot of older people. He said, yeah. I said, how many of them do you think have uh, IRAs where they have to take the required minimum distribution, but they don't need the money? They take it because they're compelled to by the IRS. He said, I don't know, but probably some. Why? So I told him, if they, instead of taking the distribution and then giving the money to the church, if they gave the distribution directly to the church, they would still get credit for the donation. The church would still get the same amount of money. However, they wouldn't pay any income taxes on the withdrawal because it never went to them. It went to a nonprofit. So it actually saved them some money, and the church still got the same amount. So he brought that to the pastor and some of the other elders of the church, and and they presented it. And turns out that the first year they wound up with a little over $80,000 in donations from 12 people. Like I said, these were people who took the money out every year, didn't need it. Um, they usually gave it away, but now they were able to make much more of an impact, and the church was able to hire those two part-time staffers because those people decided they would continue doing it every year. It's just another way um, to give more to the church. And last year, the number was over 90,000 that they were getting, and it was more than 12. I think it might have been up to 17 or 18 by then.
And this was money that they would not have had but for this strategy that you put together for them, correct?
So yeah, I just passed the info on. He took it and ran with it. Um, like I said, in those situations, everybody wins. The organization wins. The person doing the giving wins because obviously the church was something close to their heart, and they were able to be helpful. So then I started looking at other charitable strategies, and um, there's there's probably more than we can go into during this time. We could probably spend a month going through them all. Though. So let me know when you have a month with
Look,
nothing
I
else to
definitely
do.
will.
And
You're always welcome here.
thank you. So as I started looking at more charitable strategies, um, I got into the tax deferral because the more money I could save people on their income taxes and their capital gains taxes, the more they can give away, to their favorite organization. Uh, Last year, I have a client. Her tax bill was approximately $420,000. Used the strategy, got it down to $195,000, and it cost her some money to get it reduced that much. But she still netted over $100,000 at the end. And then she wrote two checks, one to her church and one to her favorite charity. Once again, for me, that's a win.
Definitely.
The, the only person I could think would be upset at that would be the IRS, and I don't know anyone who cares about them that way. So that led to more tax deferral strategies uh, because the government set it up that the more you give to charity, the less you have to send to the IRS. Those are your options. You don't necessarily get to keep your money, but if you give more to charity, the IRS will take less from you. It's been in the tax code for generations, and it's still there for that reason. So, and then the cash flow planning, which most people equate with budget planning, it's nothing like that. So let's say that you um, have a partner, and you guys started a law practice 10 years ago, and you were did phenomenally well, and now your practice is estimated to be worth $10 million. You're okay with
I
that?
am definitely okay with that.
Okay. So you were also smart, and you set up a buy-sell agreement that said, um, if something happens to your partner, then you have to write a check to your partner's family for half the value of the business. So currently, you'd have to write a check for $5 million. Or do you want to go higher? You want the firm to be worth 20 million?
Well, I think that maybe 50 million is comfortable. So let's start with 50.
Okay, 50 million. So now you got to write a check for 25 million to your surviving family of your
Okay.
partner. So the reason you've grown so much is because you reinvested in the business. So you don't have 25 million just sitting around to write a check. The cheapest way to do that is to have a life insurance policy that will pay the business that 25 million, so you can then write a check to the heirs, and then they go their way and you go your way, and you haven't had to borrow money and pay interest, to pay them off. You haven't had to sell part of the business to come up with the cash to pay them off. Cheapest way is to buy life insurance because it's about 40 to 50 cents on the dollar. Because every sword has two edges, the problem is that a policy that big, death benefit that big, is is very likely going to cost over $1 million a year for at least 10 years. And I don't know anyone who wants to pay that. So there's a thing called premium
Hmm.
financing, where you can actually borrow money from banks to pay that premium. And then, so instead of $1 million out of pocket, maybe you're paying 300K out of pocket for 10 years, and the rest is covered by the bank. So your out of pocket is just the interest on the loan. The, the way it works is the banks are happy to loan you that money because they know that they're going to get paid either from the cash value that builds up in the policy, or they're going to get paid from the death benefit. They get paid first. So they know they're never going to get stuffed. And now you've solved your problem where you funded your uh, buy sell agreement, which probably makes your CPA happy because they've been trying to get you to fund it for years, and you keep telling them you don't want to divert that much cash flow. And if it's done by the business, the interest you're paying on the loan and the fees for the loan are all the tax deductible business interest or business deduction. I'm sorry. So that's when we say cash flow planning. We help you come up with the cash flow to be able to afford these large life insurance policies for things like buy sell agreement. If you have a key person that if they leave, they will destroy your
Right.
company just based on the experience walking out the door. So you can get a key person insurance policy, which more commonly known as golden handcuffs. And then the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, the golden parachute, would be that they have this huge amount of cash value that becomes theirs, but they have to stay a certain amount of time. Because you have to stay 7 years or 10 years, or you get nothing. Right. So those are the golden handcuffs. Sometimes people want to do it because they have to equalize their estate. We work with a family where husband and wife, 4 kids, and only 3 of them worked in the family business. The other one wanted nothing to do with it. So they wanted to give that fourth one an equal amount. So they decided to get a life insurance policy that would estimate be what the business would be worth in 10 years. And some people just want to use it to pay off estate taxes because the IRS, they want their money and they don't take assets, they only take cash.
Now, Brian, that's just such a bad word, the IRS.
You don't love the IRS?
Not so fun, but that's a whole nother podcast episode. We're not, but definitely, I definitely love the strategy.
So those are the 3 things we focus on, and I've actually just scratched the surface on what you can do.
So, and those are the 3 things for the Charitable Planning Network. So, you mentioned that Planning Network Partners, they are a registered investment advisory firm. For those of us who are not financially savvy, what is the main difference in the services that you provide through Planning Network Partners?
So I manage assets. People give me their money. I help it to grow or help it to not drop too much. Just like any other investment firm, we do that. And most of the business comes from the marketing we do through Charitable Planning Network because so I'll give you a good example. I met a gentleman. He was looking for someone to give his 401k to. He was getting ready to retire. He had about $5 million in his 401k. He was interviewing people, and I was one of the finalists to interview him. And I said, okay, what really concerns you? And the biggest thing was when something happens to me, I want to make sure my wife is taken care of. That was his number one thing. And he repeatedly told me there was nothing more important than that. Okay, got that. You have a life insurance policy? He said, yes, I do. I said, okay. Um, what's the death benefit? About $500,000. Okay. So that was enough to pay off the mortgage and leave her a tidy sum. So how long have you had it? He said, I've had it about 20 years. And I said, you should let me review it. Take a look at it. He said, why? Well, technology has reduced the cost of insurance. And state insurance commissioners have dictated that since you're making more money, you need to pass some of the savings on to the client. So they had to pass the reduced cost of insurance on to the client. I told them you could potentially get the same death benefit you get now by paying a lot less, or you could potentially increase your death benefit by keeping the same price. And he says, okay. So, and then he said, well, I also need long-term care because both my grandparents lived to be in their 90s, and so there's some longevity. I need long-term care. Okay. So he gave me his policy. I was able to get it reviewed, and a couple of weeks later, I called him up. I said, okay, I got the answers for you. The death benefit for the new policy, if you decide to do it, is $730,000 as opposed to $500,000. There's a chronic illness rider in it that you can use for uh, long-term care. It starts off at $10,800 a month. He was happy about that, and with the potential to increase over the years, depending on what was going on in the economy. And so the best news is that the cash value that was in your old policy pays off your new policy, so you'll never again have to make a premium payment. He was
Nice.
paying about $7,000 a year. So you'll never have to make another premium payment. You get your long term care. Your death benefit has gone up by over $200,000, and What do you think? So this first question is all this legal? Yes. Yes, it's legal. I told you. Technology has made things cheaper. You get the benefit from that. And then he said, okay, I got two questions for you. How soon can we meet and start the process to move my policy from the old one to the new one? And as soon as that's in motion, how soon can we meet and I can just give you my 401k? So I set up appointments for whenever he was available, as soon as he was available. So by using some of those strategies, I pick up new clientele.
Nice. So, but Brian, even with the wealth of knowledge you have in this area, um, tell us about your journey because before actually doing this, I believe that you were in the Navy prior to then, right?
I was.
Okay, well
I was.
tell us about how you got here. We want to know about the journey.
Do you want me to start at conception or not
Well,
quite that far back?
we're going to go a little bit past the birds and bees, and we're gonna take it to early adulthood. How about that? When did you
Okay.
know this was the track that you wanted to be on?
I didn't. I was 18 years old, grew up in New York City, and I I was I was trying to get work, and I was told you can't work here, you have no experience. And then it was, how can I get experience and no one to hire me? Well, that's not my problem, kid. Come back when you have some experience. So my grandfather and my uncles and my older cousins, they were all merchant seamen. I thought, well, I'll check that out. But in 1976, the Merchant Marine Academy in New York was shut down. They weren't taking anybody new in because they had laid off a bunch of people. And they were waiting to bring their people back on before they brought any new people in, which makes perfect sense. And then I thought, hey, the Navy, they have ships too. I'll just join the Navy. So I joined the Navy, um, spent 20 years. While I was in the Navy, I taught myself how to program computers. And then I also taught myself um, how to budget and then invest. And first part was because I was told you're going to be the Navy relief counselor on board the ship, which is basically teaching young knucklehead sailors how to um, not get in trouble financially, how to make budgets and stick with them and all that. So, and I didn't want to do the job, and I was told I had two choices: you can do it and like it, or do it and not like it. So I said, okay, I guess I'll be doing it. But that's kind of when I got into finances more. Like I said, doing budgeting, and then now that you've saved up some money, you should be investing some of it. So then got into mutual funds and then stocks and bonds and then other things. So it kind of became a hobby that I was doing even after I got out of the Navy. Um, I also, like I said, taught myself how to program computers. So I wound up getting a job as a computer geek when I retired after 20 years, and I did that for a few years. Started my own consulting firm until one day I woke up and I said, I hate my job. And my next thought was, oh man, that's not good because I own the company. So now what do I do? So So I happened to be talking to my neighbor about, you know, you never guess what happened. I hate my job now. And it wasn't the job, it was the people that I was working with. My biggest customers were the Navy and a large multinational firm. And you may find it hard to believe, but working for the government drove me crazy.
Okay.
So at the time, he worked for Edward Jones. And this was late 2007. He said, well, you know about this stuff because you've dabbled in it for years. And you also know the back end because you built financial systems for the Navy. So you should check us out. So by May of 2008, I joined Edward Jones, and that's how I got into financial services. And I was the typical, gather assets, manage assets advisor, like how most people start out. But I read a lot. I always want to know what's going on, and I think you should always be keeping abreast of what's new in the marketplace, and also keeping abreast of what's new as far as regulations and legislation go, because all those things affect what you can do for your client. And my core values, the second one is to always be doing what's best for your client. So that means keeping myself educated about what's going on. And I kind of outgrew Edward Jones because they have a very specific niche they want to stay in, and they're really good in it. But I'd say I want to do this, and they say, "Well, we don't do that here." Okay. And from there, I went to J.P. Morgan Chase for a couple of years, and then I went to Wells Fargo for 4.5 years. Kind of had the same problem. I kind of outgrew them too. I went to an independent firm, World Equity Group, for 2 years, and then I decided that I needed to jump off a cliff and start my own firm. So, and then I met you, and here we are.
Well, Brian, listen, I am so excited that you've shared with us just some of the strategies that you use for Charitable Planning Network and Planning Network Partners. We are so excited that that there are services like this that are out there and available. So, if people need to find you, how can they find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn under Charitable Planning Network. You can go to either website, or they're pretty easy. So it's www.charitableplanningnetwork.com or www.planningnetwork. I'm sorry, planningnetworkpartners.com.
Okay. Well, listen, thank you for your time. And until next time, this has been another episode of the Play Big Faster podcast.
Do you want to start your own business? Confused about where to begin? Not sure if you can do this? I'm glad you made your way here. Cut through the confusion. I invite you to join in on the 5-day Play Big Faster Challenge. You'll get step-by-step guidance on how to start and scale your dream business faster. 5 days perfectly structured. Build the business you've always dreamed of without spending tons of money and hiring consultants or a lot of staff. Join the challenge today at www.playbigfaster.com.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Play Big Faster podcast. Want more entrepreneurial content?
I like this.
Make sure to subscribe for future episodes.
Already subscribed.
I just clicked on it.
Don't forget to like and leave a review. Share with a friend that needs this in their life.
I think you need this more than I.
Oh, and make sure to follow Scherrie on IG at Scherrie Speaks. And remember to play big faster.